There are days that I wake up and I say, today I have to be a sociopath. And I'm able to do that. I have to imagine myself in every character. That's the good guys and the bad guys. And on a given day, of course, I'll be... it's perfectly possible that one day, as in the new book, Dear Professor, I'm a demented old fellow, old psychology professor, suffering hallucinations, and the next day I may be a captive 16-year-old girl. Distance is just the worst possible thing for an author. It's more intimacy. You must really feel what those people are going through in the book. And if you try to separate yourself from them, you will lose the psychological thread of what you're doing. What protects you as an author is that I always know where I'm going and what the end will be. And I know what happens to everyone. The only person who really suffers on this is my wife, who reads the book about halfway through, and she goes, "What is going to happen?" And I say, "Well, it'll work out. It'll work out. Trust me." And she doesn't really trust me. The most unsettling thing is that on 3 different occasions, copies of one of my early books, The Traveler, have been found in the possession of serial killers when they were arrested by the police. And as I said to a friend of mine once, most writers want to be in the New York Times, but that might be the only reason you don't want to be in the New York Times. The fact is, all books should be thrillers. When I read, and here I started out by talking about David Copperfield, and I love Charles Dickens. But I read Great Expectations in one night because it was so exciting. I had to turn the pages. And for me, it's really not so much about writing a thriller as much as it is telling a story that is compelling and is psychologically sound and has some emotional content. And that at the end, that if that is a thriller, it should be. All books should be. And so that's how it sort of, comes about for me. To be truthful, I really try to write the best book I can and hope that people will find it interesting and exciting. I was very young. I was about 11 years old, 12 years old, and I had an assignment in school, and it was to write a paper about David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. And I wrote a satire about it. And I did this particularly because I really did not like the teacher very much, and she was enamored of David Copperfield. And when I read my paper out loud to the class, of course all the other students were rolling on the floor laughing as the teacher's face got redder and redder and redder. And I thought, what could be better than being a writer? From that point on, whenever I had to write something, I would get a high mark, and whenever I had to memorize something, I would get a low mark. And so the upshot of the whole thing was I realized that the only thing I really could do was to write. And so I spent much of my time trying to figure out, how to make a career out of writing. I think that the thing that is most interesting for me about being an author is that it's a very odd life. After I finish touring with the new book, I will go back to my office, and for the next year, I'm like a monk in a cell, and I don't hardly talk to anyone. My dog looks at me like I'm crazy. My wife knows better than to ask me any question about what I'm doing. My friends they will occasionally ask me a question like, did you kill anybody off today in a book? And I say perhaps, but mostly I'm just alone there with my people and my story. So in a little bit, the thing that surprises me the most about being an author is that when you do come out and you finish your book and you come out to talk to the world at large, you feel a little bit like the elephant that, at the zoo, and the zookeeper leaves the gate open one day, and he walks out and he looks around and says, this is interesting. This isn't like back there. I'll go a little further. And you raise your snout and take a sniff of the air. This is interesting. I think I'll walk. Everybody's looking at me. Why? Here I am, the elephant walking down, unter den Linden, and you feel a little bit like that. In the newest book, in Dear Professor, I think that I've really managed to make an exciting story psychologically intriguing at the same time. So I would say, of course, go buy the book. Go buy the book on audio. Go buy the book in a bookstore. Steal the book if you have to. I think that in many thrillers, you mentioned Sebastian Fitzek, these are getting more and more psychologically astute. And there's much we learn about ourselves through reading thrillers. And it's, I think, an extraordinarily important thing because it's a window on a kind of world that we can actually reach into and understand. So I would say, not just read mine, read a lot of people.